We are storytellers by nature, sharing with others what we experience, perceive, and believe of life, our joys, adventures, our losses. We tell ourselves stories as well. Some leave us trapped by false beliefs and self-doubt. But there are also stories of persisting, exploring, and rising above. Stories of uncovering the truth, enabling powerful transformation and triumph. These are those stories. These are your stories. Hello, folks. See, we have to have at least one glitch per day. It's a requirement. Welcome to And So It Is, Stories of Truth, Transformation, and Triumph. My name is Zoe DeMuro. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a spiritual counselor, a religious science practitioner with the New Thought Media Network, and a transformational coach. My ministry and my mission are to help people co-create their most authentic and most fulfilling life experience. It's my honor to bring this show to you the first Saturday of each month, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Pacific. So if this is your first time, it's great to have you here. And if you're returning, welcome back. You know, in each episode of the show, we're going to hear from people like you and like me, people who have been held back by false limiting beliefs and how they've uncovered their truth, enabling them to transform their life experience and bring about triumph. Yes, triumph. Not in spite of, but because of their journey. You know, whenever I introduce one of my guests, I ask them if there is anything in particular they want me to share. I did so, of course, today with today's guest, but I'm just going to give you my own insight into Rev Dr Michelle Wadleigh. Rev Michelle is also known as Rev Jersey Girl. And for any of you familiar with the East Coast of the United States, that tells you a lot already. Now, I could tell you that Reverend Michelle is an award-winning author, a respected and sought-after speaker, a font of wisdom, love, compassion, and grace. Or I can tell you if you need somebody to have your back and give you a kick in the backside when truly needed, that's Reverend Michelle. Now, her official bio is in the description for the taping of this episode, and it's available on YouTube and on Facebook. So you can get the real scoop there. But let me introduce a mentor, a prayer warrior, a friend, family from me, Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadleigh.
What a sweet introduction. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you. You know, it's funny. I've had this experience for as long as I've been in ministry. And there are people that come into my life where on the first moment upon meeting them, I know there's like a connection. And I know it because I never forget the first time I looked in their eyes. And you were one of those people. You were, I remember approaching you across the room in Oakland. And so that's sweet. And I love being called family. So thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. So let's get the show on the road. We need to put this into context. So your story is going to be one, of course, of transformation and triumph, but we need to understand where we're starting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's funny saying it now because, you know, we've been chatting and putting in this perspective. And if I was talking in general, it might sound like I was beating myself up, but the truth is I so appreciate the start because it's the start that which was the launch pad, right, for everything else. And so I started I grew up in a very small town called North Bergen, New Jersey. And no, that's not North Bergen County. For those of you get confused, it's a tiny little town and in an apartment above a garage. We never owned a home when I was young. I grew up, I'm the baby of 7, having two sisters that are old enough to be my parents, and I had nieces that are older than me. So that was fun. There was a lot of confusion. I thought my nieces were actually my cousins. I thought my sisters were my aunts because of the time span difference. I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional, depressing home where with and this is not even a slant on the category people I'm about to mention, because I have great love and appreciation and compassion. But my mother was a blatant alcoholic, and so all that goes with that. All
Mm-hmm.
that goes with the pain of that, and the stories of that. A father who was distant, but not distant enough, because in there was sexual abuse of myself and all my sisters, some of the grandchildren. A home. It's funny, you said before, you were talking before the show about cooking, and the way first of all, once my mother sobered up, she became a great cook. But I learned to cook because my mother often would be unable to cook. She was
Mm-hmm.
out of it. And I would cook so that my father would come home to food, because it was it was part of my peacekeeping mission, was to make sure that everybody was happy. And I did a lot of peacekeeping, and I did a lot of keeping things in place, and I did a lot of lying. I lied to my mother when she would check in about my father. When my father would ask me if my mother was drinking, I lied. When my sisters would call up and say, what's going on, is mom up? Or I just lied. I lied
Mm-hmm.
throughout my childhood to just kind of keep things in place and keep the parts moving. And I was a painfully introverted, shy, painfully, so much so that we lived when I went to the elementary school, that I went to, was around the block from where I lived, and I could see it out of the window of the last bedroom I wound up in this apartment. And I knew the girl, her name was Diane. I knew the person who would be the last to walk past the door, because we used to go home for lunch back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
The way
Yep.
it was. And if I would go downstairs and I'd crack the door just a little bit to see if Diane walked past me. And then once she walked past me, I'd leave the house, because I didn't want to be seen by people or walk near people or any of that. I really had no friends. Couple, as I got a little bit older, but it was really painful being in my skin. It was not fun. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't easy. And it took years for me to break out of that. I mean, and somebody might think I'm exaggerating, but it wasn't until my 40s that I sat at a restaurant to eat alone. Now, when I'm saying a restaurant, I mean like a McDonald's. I wouldn't sit alone. I didn't want to walk the dog unless it was dark out or in the morning, because I didn't want to be seen walking on the street. I'm telling you, it was, and all of this is in contrast to other things. But when you asked me what was the beginning wasn't lovely, and it was depressing, and it was dark, and all those things.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. Unfortunately, I can understand too many of those from my own experience.
Yeah.
So, given that this was the atmosphere in which you were being raised and in which you were raising yourself to a great extent,
Yeah.
what did you take away from that? What did you come to believe about yourself?
You mean that led to freedom, or where I was still stuck?
Where you were still stuck?
it's taken decades to climb out of the hole of the not enoughness.
Mm.
Wow, it's hard to describe because you're asking me the question now, and because I'm present to what we're doing here. I could feel it, but it's difficult to find words for it. It was about not belonging anywhere. I didn't have a sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know it's a cliche to say I wasn't worth it. It's a cliche. But in my experience, man, it was deep. It was really deep. And I had no confidence in anything. My family didn't socialize in the town. I didn't know till I was much later that people played sports and there were teams and cheerlead. Like, I didn't know that world existed. My world was come home from school. Maybe my mother was sober. Maybe she was sleeping in my bed, waiting for my father to come home. And if he didn't come home and it was dinner time and my mother happened to make the dinner, she'd say, go get your father down at the bar. Who sent your kid to do that?
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it is. So there was this kind of uncomfortable navigating through everything. It's a little hard to put in words, but it's imagine yourself being stuck in a vat of honey, except it's not sweet, and not being able to move. And so the beliefs about myself just was, I was so limited, Zoe. I just felt so not available. Like, I mean, I have some fun childhood memories. I do. And it has mostly to do with my nieces and nephews, who I thought were my cousins, but not in my home, not when I was there, because I came 10 years later, 10 years after the last children, and they were twins. And so by the time, I really was a functioning young person, I was alone pretty much. I had one brother who lived there until he got married. My one sister left the house at 15 in a drama that you only see in a movie. And my other brother, her twin, went to Vietnam and never came home. So a lot of pain, a lot of not belonging. I think that's probably the word, that I didn't belong and that I didn't deserve and that I would never, God knows, I certainly didn't think I was intelligent. And a lot of that and all versions of that.
Wow.
Not fun. It wasn't lovely. It wasn't lovely.
I know. I'm always amazed when people tell me about their what seems to me to be their storied childhood.
Well, it's funny because I know when we get into the next part of it, there's another whole layer of this that makes it even, makes it interesting. But this was very real, and I'll say to people sometimes, and if it wasn't, because I know we'll get into it at some point, if it wasn't for this one person, one influence in my life, I think I'd still be like laying on the floor somewhere, sucking my thumb in a fetal position, crying. Like, I'm grateful that I can have this conversation with you and have it not destroy me or my emotions, have it. I'm so grateful, but I won't jump ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it is important for us to be able to look back to where we came from, only to take the nugget that it's going to give us.
Yeah.
There's a word in Swahili, I believe it is, called Sankofa. And the idea of Sankofa is the image is this bird that's reaching back behind it to an egg.
Oh.
So you bring forward that which can be helpful, and you
Yeah.
leave the rest behind.
Yeah.
And of course, with the way you do many of the things in your ministry, being able to understand that beginning, being able to understand those roots is so important.
I don't think I could do what I do now if I hadn't gone through what I went through.
Mhm.
I wouldn't have the kind of empathy I do. I wouldn't have the kind of compassion I do. I couldn't relate. I mean, and not everything. I can't relate to everything everyone tells me, and I haven't been through. I've only been through what I've been through. But but knowing that my life was the fodder and that I could survive it. That's why well, I have what do you call it? Lotuses on my wrists, and one says ease and one says grace. But the whole concept of the lotus is it grows out of the mud.
Mhm.
And so that image and that idea has always been incredibly valuable for me because it's what I came out of.
Mhm.
And some people might be ashamed. And I know there are people that are ashamed. And God bless anyone who might watch who feels ashamed, but I don't anymore. I don't, which
Mhm.
I'm pleased about.
So let's talk about how you got past this. Something obviously had to have happened.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting. This is really, it's complicated. It's complicated. So while my home life was everything I just told you, and that's true, because I came later in my family. My mother was 43 when she had me, for Pete's sake. I was a true change of life baby. And my sisters had taken my parents to court trying to force them to get help because they didn't want me to go through what they had gone through. Fascinating. But the court system, there wasn't child protective services at
Mhm.
that time the way it is. There was no DIFUS or whatever they call it now. Those systems didn't quite exist. But I guess what the judge did, the judge said my family had to get some counseling. And oddly enough, it was not even my sister. I used to think it was my sister. My brother-in-law happened to read in the newspaper that barely exists anymore, about this woman that was doing this counseling and all this stuff, and her name was Rita Sperling, and Rita lived and worked in Jersey City, and she had a small organization where she did hypnotherapy and counseling and all sorts of workshops and stuff. So the court said I don't know if it was just my father or my father and my mother had to work with her. So they got connected, and then my couple of my sisters did some stuff with her too. But somehow with me it stuck. So every night for decades at 345 Central Avenue in Jersey City at 8 o'clock at night, at the floor above the stores, a long walk up, I knew there'd be this workshop. And so my father used to take me, my mother and father used to go, and I was the annoying little kid in the background. So a lot of the stuff I was literally absorbing through my
Mhm.
skin.
Mhm.
And then, so that went on for years. And I would show up sometimes, and every year they'd have a picnic, and there'd be this big picnic with all these people. The beautiful thing about this community, we were white, we were black, we were old, we were young, we were gay, we lesbians, rich, poor, Jewish, Christian. We were a hodgepodge of diversity before it was cool. I mean, and I always have a special place in my heart because I remember there were these lesbians and they just loved me. They just loved me. And I remember they just loved on me, right? And so that was a very a kind of a distant absorbing of information. And then at the age of 19, my mother and father would have picnics every year, and they would do a retreat, although they called it something else. And my father and mother would go. And I remember going as a kid, and I remember people laying on the floor crying and processing. We just step over the adults. It was what we did. But it was those things were a big love fest. A big love fest. And at 19, my mother and father were supposed to go, and I guess my mother canceled. My father asked me if I wanted to go, so I went. And at the age of 19, I went. I was impacted by the experience. I remember going skinny dipping in the woods with a bunch of people. And I never turned back because I had an experience that struck my heart. Now, mind you, I still managed to mess up the middle of my life. Totally messed up the middle of my life. Totally many transgressions, many lies, many wrongdoings. I did. I messed up. But somehow so this is that part of me, but this other part of me was a growing knowledge of self-awareness and understanding and hypnosis and healing. But they both kind of coexisted until finally this part took that over, but that wasn't until years later. So, and Rita, she was a ballsy little lady. She's a tiny little thing, 4'11" on one side, 5'1" on the other. She had had an accident when she was small, and they didn't have the means that they have now. And so she had this very deep limp, you know, but she would love ballroom dancing. You couldn't see the limp when she was dancing. You couldn't see it anyway. She had blue eyes that would just melt you. Anyway, so I was taking in this information, and we would be at these workshops on Friday nights, and she would process with my father and me in the room in front of everybody, something no therapist would do today. No, they'd say, oh, no, that's not professional. There would be a whole, but and that's part of PHI, it was called the Planned Happiness Institute, and we'll get to that. We were fearless in bringing out the stuff. So I had this conditioning. I had this hope, this air of hope that I was getting, and then I started processing on my own. So it was kind of a, braided together. That was the early parts of my years until I took it on myself and started taking trainings and courses with her and really got to know the work. That's where I started all. I mean, I've only known metaphysics, and that's where I got it, was from her.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how, we talk about where we start, we talk about transformation and triumph and all of that, but life is not just that neat, simple trajectory.
No.
And there are so many ways that we transform and so many ways that we move forward and move backward. And we're on all these different levels, if you will.
Yeah.
Someone once explained it to me. It's like when a wave comes to the shore, it brings things in, it takes things back.
Yeah.
And the next wave is different again.
Yes. I wanted to say something, but I'll wait for your.
No, go ahead.
I'm just grateful. I'm profoundly grateful for every twist and turn and pain and the mini triumphs, because this is what I know. I broke the chain of pain in my family. I got to break the chain. I got to take what was and this is something you've probably heard me refer to before. In that I got to take my lineage and change the direction so that my legacy is one of healing and love. And I'm the stopping point. I'm the stopgap for the stuff that was rolling downhill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so grateful that, my kids will still have their stuff. I'm sure they have reasons for therapy. They just won't be to the same degree.
All right. So now you've come into a community where before you not only did not have a community, you didn't even have a belief that you could be part of a community. And you joined a community of people that were not the same as you at all, and yet were the same in that they had that desire. They had that.
I think it's the why. I think that early experience is why when I started getting involved in religious science and I was on the first diversity commission, I have to be honest, I was naive to the struggle because I had been raised in a community of so much acceptance and so much love. And to the degree that my eldest sister, who had 5 kids, she chose to raise her family in an all-Black neighborhood in Jersey City because she wasn't going to do what everyone else had done. She was brave. She was a tough cookie, my sister, and she was brave, but that was my exposure. And so I didn't know. I couldn't see the pain because I wasn't experiencing it from that point of view.
Mm-hmm.
It was very... This early exposure had a lot of different impact for me.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I certainly had a very similar experience growing up in New York City.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I didn't know you were a New Yorker.
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
Brooklyn specifically.
Oh, man. Okay.
How could you not have known that about me?
I don't know. I guess because you're so soft. I think of you as soft and mushy. I don't think of Brooklyn people as soft and mushy.
I'll take your word for it that that's a good thing.
Yes, it's a good thing.
So let's see. So we've got this opportunity now, this springboard. All right. What steps did you actually take now that you had this firmer foundation?
Well, I took a lot of training with Rita, and the training was all the training, all the different varieties of things, and she was influenced by many psychological modalities and things like selves work, which now they call it parts or family. I don't know what they call it now. The kind of psychodramas that she was incredible at it. I remember going to New York City to a whole conference of people that were doing these kind of things. She had her finger on the pulse of transformation that was new at the time. All of it was supported with hypnosis, which now I have prayer, but we had hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
But everything came down to this. And she would tell us 1,000 times a year, raise your self-love quotient. Like learn to love yourself. Which isn't easy when you think you are a toxic, worthless piece of dog doo-doo. Because that's the part. So I still had the conditioning from home, and not so much because of words. Well, some words. I remember my father once telling me I was stupid. And then I realized I believed him for years, we had no education in my family, no education. Both, I think my mother and father didn't go past 6th grade or 8th grade. Mm-hmm. How my father raised a family with that level of education, I don't even know how that happened. But what I knew that Rita was right. And I knew because I had gotten a taste of love, and I'd gotten a taste of loving myself through the classes and the workshops. And so that became my true north. I had to return frequently. I had to I had to climb out of it. But because I knew, and I had this glimpse, I just had a moment's glimpse that I was worth something. That's what I just kept reaching for. Even while I was screwing up my house, even while it's fascinating. It sounds like I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but I'm telling you, there's something about having the concept and then being emotionally mature enough to embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I had decided I didn't want to be married anymore. And so I ended the marriage. But before my ex-husband moved out, and by the way, we're like close friends now. Him, his wife, we're all very close friends. We have holidays together and vacations together, so we're good. Like, we're good. Okay. I need everybody to understand that, because it's an important part of this journey. The fact that we can be good is a result of this journey.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember this one night so specifically. I was in great emotional upset. And I was downstairs in the TV room, and I'm sobbing, one of those ugly cries, the snot coming out of the nose kind of ugly cries. And no one came to see if I was okay, which I thought was interesting. And somewhere in the middle of that, it's like a voice that said to me, "You're still worth it." Like, something pulled me to remember that I was worthy. It was a very low voice, but it was almost like I paid attention, and thank God. That voice, it had to be my divine self that knew at that moment I needed this tap on the shoulder and said, "It's okay. We're going to get through this." And I did. And I did. One step at a time, one class at a time. Going back, because at one point I attended a Science of Mind church. It didn't work out, and I went back and found a new teacher and started sucking it up, sucking everything up. Every class, every Sunday, the music, everything. I just sucked it up into my beingness. And then I found prayer, spiritual mind treatment. And that was it. See, I had hypnosis, and hypnosis and spiritual mind treatment are very much the same. I guarantee they set off the same bells and whistles in the brain, but I didn't love hypnosis because it was too methodical. And I found spiritual mind treatment to be lyrical and poetic. And not that I was that poetic, but I needed the freedom to do this and to be in the dance. And that was it. That was the most serious shift of trajectory that said, "Oh, I'm going to be okay. I got this. I'm going to be okay now." And nothing was the same since.
I can certainly appreciate the idea that still small voice. For me, the way it manifested was more as an ember that became a flame, something that I knew was deep within me. And even when I was at my worst, I mean, I was an alcoholic and an addict. I was a mess. I always knew there was something there.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that I was able to open to that, the more there was. And it's like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, to be here, sitting here with you, my husband was teasing me today. We went to watch my grandson, who's 9, play rugby, which is watching little boys and girls play rugby is the most adorable thing ever. And so we went to watch him, and we drove past the ridiculous community college that I went to for 1 year for hotel restaurant management, but I never even went back, never completed anything because I was too busy getting stoned and didn't know how to fill out the paperwork. So my husband was teasing me today, like, oh, honey, here's your old school. I said, oh, yeah, my alma mater, and to sit here before you, like I went through years of feeling of self-doubt, self-criticism, self-condemnation about how uneducated I was and how unexposed I was and how not learned that I was. And then I just stopped the bullshit. I'm sorry, excuse me, but I just stopped it. I stopped giving that voice authority. And because we know what I had the authority of God. I had the power of God through me. I had that voice and that encouragement. And through years of deep, profound, silent meditation, I started accessing consciousness. I accessed things. I learned things that I had no other way of knowing. I understood things about psychological things and learned about the ego and understanding humans because of my deep, profound dedication to prayer and to silent meditation and contemplation. And those three things playing off of each other position me to learn and embrace and allow, because I didn't have a degree. And if I wanted to be a minister today and go to the school that we have for religious science ministers, I wouldn't be able to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm really good with where I am. Really good with
that. Well, there's book learning and then there's life experience and wisdom. So you've been transforming year by year, decade by decade, in so many different ways. Let's talk about where you are these days, because you have just got some spectacular things going on.
Thank you. Well, this uneducated toots from North Bergen, New Jersey, living at 1112 Patterson Plank Road in where I lived. It's almost like it's a dream. So I became, and I'll say I became because I didn't know it when I started, I became a really good teacher. And I think because I knew how to keep things simple, and I wanted these things available. So I developed as a teacher. Yes, I got some instructions and ministerial training, but believe me, not really. Most of my what I feel good about that I bring to the table, I learned through my spiritual teacher, Rita. I learned through those classes, those workshops, making things. When I oh my God, before COVID, my classroom was wonderfully alive and very vibrant and very kinesthetic. The same thing with retreats that I do. I make sure that people are getting this kinesthetic, and this tactile experience of themselves. I've always had a profound sense of the value of the body temple as a signal for learning and for reading ourselves, right? And I always knew to plug in, and so all those things, and what would happen is I would notice a missing in maybe the curriculum, or when I would be working with people as a practitioner, and I'd notice, like I remember like noticing, wow, people don't quite know how to let go because they haven't really been taught forgiveness. So, that's when the conversation around forgiveness really came into my practitioner work, and then my classroom. And then, and then I developed a forgiveness course because it was needed. And then what happened was I started working with not only students, excuse me, from the center, but other practitioners and ministers. I thought, oh, they didn't get this. They don't have this. And without that piece of understanding about letting go and forgiving, you keep the pain alive. So all of a sudden now I have this thing. And then someone, Reverend Jim Stark, God bless my beloved friend, gave me a platform to teach. And now all of a sudden it was growing, and it came from 4 weeks to 5 to 6 weeks. And then I had a booklet, and then I thought, oh, this has got to be a book. And then that was there. And then I started looking at how, because in my practitioner work, I was told that we had to do shadow work. And back in the day, before I had my own shadow book, the book we used was Debbie Ford's book. I used to use Colin Tipping's book on forgiveness, and I used Debbie Ford's book on shadow work. But now I have my own, and I love my own 1,000 times more because I have new thought metaphysical sensitivities. And in the shadow work, which I realized forgiveness was necessary in shadow work, because we had to forgive the components that were in our lives that caused us some of the pain that was the cause. And so I learned how to put forgiveness and shadow together so we could find freedom. And then there was a time a couple of years back, I guess now, when my publisher needed a book on shadow work, and he remembered, because I talked to him, he's a friend and colleague. He says, you still have that book? You have that beginnings? Well, that was the beginning of me writing a book. Like, yes, I self-published before then, but now suddenly, oh my God, I'm being published. Oh my God. Oh my God. Me, this uneducated, non-degreed, person. And I'm in Barnes and Noble and Target and it's like, but with a real book, with a real publisher. And then that rolled over till this November. I'm proud to say my forgiveness book that I had published is being reworked, and it'll be out in November. And I promise if anybody picks up any of these books, the thing that matters to me most is that we love ourselves through the process, that the process be gentle, that we don't be beating ourselves up and fight and just, find fault, that we go, oh, that's what happened. Let me love myself through this. And within the next couple of days, I'm going to hit send on my 3rd book for them. And it's called Dance Like Nobody's Watching. And it's about, I'm so grateful. It's about returning to your authentic self. Now, that book was hard because the other 2 came out of courses I was teaching, came out of, I already had a manuscript started for both of them. This came out of the genius of spirit. I'm very excited about it. And so what was the question I was asking? I think you were just asking me where I am now, right?
Right. So before you go on, I just want to bring this up because I like this visual.
So that forgiveness book, the orange forgiveness book, I didn't catch that before. That's the one that I published, I self-published, and it's lovely, but it's not available anymore. But the white one is going to replace that one. And I love the contrast of the forgiveness book and the shadow book. And the 40 Days of Freedom is a Lenten practice for the modern mind. And I wrote that so that metaphysical people could have a practice for that, for the 40 days before Easter, if you celebrate that. And Prosperous Me came out of an assignment that was given to me, and it's all treatments for consciousness about raising the consciousness of prosperity. And many people have used both these books for pre-Easter or prosperity programs. So it's been really cool. Really cool.
Well, it's been really cool to be on this other side of it too, let me tell you.
Oh, good.
And I have certainly benefited from the work that we have done. Ah. So I know you have other things going on. So,
Like?
like,
I mean, things that I'm participating in. I do.
yeah.
Well, I was excited about today. I will be at SOAR. I will be offering a workshop at SOAR, and I'm receiving an award up there, which is kind
And
of
SOAR
cool.
stands for,
I don't know what SOAR stands for.
because I don't remember.
SOAR is a year. Every other year, there's a retreat for anybody's welcome. It's a spiritual retreat, and this year, it's in Banff, Canada, and I can't wait. I'm going up. I'm going to be there early because I'm going to one of the local ministries to do a workshop and a Sunday talk, and I'm going to go to Lake Louise, and I just can't wait to drink that place in, which is just stunning. In September, I'm doing another beautiful practitioner training, which I did for them last year in Philadelphia. Reverend Eamon Duffy has invited me to be one of only 2 women speakers for his old men's. I think you have a thing for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the New Thought Men's community, and they're doing a conference. And yeah, myself and Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadleigh. So we got 2 MWs. So he wanted to have a women's perspective. And that's free for members, but it's only $50. And we just do it. It's not a paid gig, but I get to bring my shadow work to that bigger community of all men's community. I'm very excited about that. And then in the fall, I don't have anything on this because it's not been solidified yet. I'll be doing something on shadow work with Reverend Mark. Nobody calls him Reverend Mark Anthony Lord, who's a crazy guy. We love each other's craziness. And so, yeah, developing courses, writing books, and I know I have more. I know I have more books in me. That's the cool thing. Is that what you were asking me?
Oh, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Or to put another word.
By the way, we do have lots of classes, and so you can sign up for my email list and find out about all the classes, or my Substack, and that'll connect you. So you can either have me privately or you can have me in a classroom experience.
Okay, so let me put this up. Your email address.
Michelle@michellewadleigh.com.
Okay, so there's that, and then we have the
The
Substack link.
The Substack has been oh my God, what fun. For anybody who's a blogger, Substack is the way to go. It is the best platform. I'm telling you, it's wonderful, wonderful. And I don't make any money for saying that.
What advice would you give to people who are struggling with the idea that, well, yeah, I could see that you can progress, but what happened to me was just so incredibly difficult?
Boy, I deal with people. My world survives or is anchored in the difficult, and I've had to meet many people with stories that would just break your heart, But I'm willing to do the down, the dirty, and the hard, and I'm willing to sit with people in it because not everybody's equipped. Not everybody's equipped. And the advice I would give, the first thing, because it's not easy to do it on your own, the very first thing I would do is I'd find a community, and I would do that immediately. Not a community that's filled with hell and damnation or sin or needing to where you need to make up for what you've done, but in a community that's willing to love you and accept you exactly as you are without explanation. And for me, those are the New Thought communities. Are they all equal? No, not necessarily, but that's where I would go. I would run out. I would hang up from watching this and go find a community. That's how much I believe in it. Science of Mind community, Unity community, Divine Science community, anything like that. Anything where you're going to be surrounded with love and spiritual mind treatment or prayer, whatever they call it. And because then once you feel safe, once you have you're cocooned in this place of safety, then you can start stepping out and saying, okay, what can I do next? What can I do next? I've trained many practitioners. I still work with practitioners today. And the single most important thing for any individual to grow is for them to feel safe. And if you go to a community, you don't feel safe, get to a new community. Absolutely. If you're working, with somebody and you don't feel safe, find somebody new. And it can be done online. It can be an online community. But I encourage you to find something close by if you have that available. But not everybody has that,
Mm-hmm.
But feeling safe and being in a community. And, they've done scientific tests to prove that when you have a community, it could be a chess club, people. But as long as you're connected to people who love you or that you feel safe with, they have scientifically proven it adds 7 years of life to a Caucasian person, 14 years of life to someone who is a person of color, and that's how important community is. I raised my third son pretty much as a single mom, but I had community, and that community was a incubator for me, for my belief system. They supported me. They loved me. Thank God, my son, I had many very loving, conscious, white, I'll say white because I'm tired of white men always getting trashed, white men who, yeah, come on, it can be over the top. And I understand why. I understand it.
As do I.
Yeah, there's no mystery around it. But these men loved on my son. They were great examples of honest and men of integrity and kindness. And but that all came out of the community. That community loved me while I was finding out who I was. And that was a Science of Mind community. I will be devoted because some people say it doesn't go deep enough. Well, you're just not going deep enough. There's no done. There's no done in Science of Mind. You take it as deep and you take it as deep as you're willing to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's, it originally was named Science of Mind and Spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's so important to remember.
And the other thing, by the way, and this is not just a push because I do it, but there's nothing more important than forgiveness. If you're in agony, there's a strong likelihood you're feeling victimized. There's a likelihood you think the world is not for you, or just your family or just your friends. There's a lot of ways that we feel disconnected, and forgiveness will open the door. Forgiveness will open the door to allow for many other things to come. I have seen wild transformation happen just from the practice of forgiveness. So I just, and doing it with somebody. It's funny, you said before in the introduction, you talked about me pushing or shoving or something. The way I talk about my coaching is I'll hold your hand, but I'll also hold your feet to the fire, because sometimes we do need that nudge. We need the nudge. We need someone to say, oh, get over it. Take a step, take a chance, break free. And yeah.
The idea that there is something greater than what you have seen before.
Yeah.
the beauty of that is that it's always true.
Yes.
It is always true. The abundance has no limit.
Yes.
Well, I, for one, have advanced significantly because of the work that you and I have done. It's part of what has made most of what I do currently possible.
Thank you.
You know, you get to a point where you think that you understand, and then you learn something else, and then you understand deeper, and you understand wider. That is great.
We were coming home the other night from visiting with some friends, and I have a friend. We have a friend, and a little stubborn sometimes. Lovely person, lovely. Oh my God, lovely. One of my best friends, and closest friends. But he was pushing something, a suggestion on my husband, and pushing it, and my husband's, and we're in the car. And it's like, why is he pushing on that so much? And I'm telling you, this thing happened, and it's almost like I was outside myself, and I just turned to my husband and I said to him, it's his love language. And he just wanted my husband to be okay, and he was attached to this, and I realized, oh, it was his love language. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because it just came out of my mouth, but it was the realization that I had learned so much, that I didn't have to make him wrong. I didn't have to collude with my husband going, rah, 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 and not that he wasn't that upset. It just happened to it just happened. But it's like I found myself elevated. I went, oh, look at that. Oh, freedom from judgment. Because, I talk so much about judgment, that I was so free from the judgment, I could see through it. I was like, man, that's freedom. That's freedom. When we don't have to entertain judgment, when I don't have to entertain why you're so wrong, or why, when I pay more attention to what's right than what's wrong, it begins to balance the scales in a whole new way.
Well, we could probably do this for the next 4 hours, but they don't give me that much time. So I want to
do your commercial.
So I want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So glad to have been able to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's been lovely. And I just want to close it for me. I realized the other day that I am truly devoted to having as many humans find as much freedom as they possibly can through the self-forgiveness and self-love. And if I can do it, anybody can. I just wanted to say that. If I can do it, anybody can. Because I was pretty messed up.
Yeah. Thank you. And folks, I just wanted to remind you that this show is your show. All right. So if you would like to connect with me to give me some ideas for talking about one of your transformations, I would be delighted to hear that. Right? Every transformation is a miracle. So we will see you again next month. And until then, please know that, oh my goodness, you are not only loved, but you are love. Now, if I can actually do this right, then I can find the right video and all this. It's going to be amazing.
So thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you. Be well. So long, folks.